Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Cool. So just to get started, if everyone can introduce themselves and their background.
Do you want me to start? Hi, my name is Petra Stadholm. I'm head of acquisition for Simply Business. We're an online business insurance broker, and we're the biggest one in the UK. And within the next 24 hours, we will be approaching 500,000 of active policyholders. As of 2016, we then also expanded in the US, so we have a bit of also US experience for you.
My name is Barry Samurai. I'm a senior search planner buyer at MediaCom. I've had over 3.5 years experience in search. A lot of my background is in retail, online healthcare, and online pharmacy clients as well. So this is all about Black Friday and Christmas for the next 90 days of my life.
Hi everyone, so my name is Hazel and I'm also from MediaCom, so I'm also a senior search planner buyer. I've been at MediaCom for 4 years and all been in search. I've had a range of industries I've worked across, so health and fitness, retail, FMCGs and home appliances.
And I'm Natalie, and I'm a Customer Success Director at Adthena and have had background in travel and marketing for quite a few years now. So obviously the title of today's event was "'Tis the Season," but actually, what are your seasons?
Shall I start? So for health and fitness, mainly January to March, so that's kind of like the New Year, New Year's resolutions, so that's a peak season. And then what's interesting is actually Black Friday has actually become a thing now. So it's kind of like when people are just trialing a gym before they commit in the new year. And then there's a slight peak as well in September, so that's kind of when, mainly for university students, who just kind of come over, and you'll see like a peak there. Across home appliances, it's mainly around the summertime, so that's when there's like home renovations, and then things like, for example, fridges, so people just want to make sure everything stays cold with the heat. And then for FMCGs, it's a mix, so obviously there's demand all year round, but you'll actually see some peaks in summer for like soft drinks, for water, because of the hot weather, and then in winter you'll see a peak as well, because people tend to stock up because of the cold weather. And then across home appliances, like I already said home appliances, I think that's everything I've covered.
Yeah. So for retail, it's the usual suspects, so Black Friday and Christmas. But these days, it's more about every single kind of seasonal event, no matter how big or small you think they are. So that's Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Halloween, even things like Easter holidays and bank holiday weekends. They're not traditionally seasonal, but they represent a shift in the change of our consumers, especially in the retail market as well. So it tends to be an all year round thing as well. And I think what Anuj was alluding to earlier, that it's being reactive to all these things. If something happening with a bank holiday weekend that could impact you, whether it's the weather or it's school holidays, are people less cash rich because they're taking the kids on really expensive holidays. So seasonal events can happen, but try to think beyond the traditional at the moment as well.
Even though we are B2B, we actually are catering for a B2C audience too. And with business insurance, our busiest time of the year is January through to March. Why? Because New Year's resolution being, I'm going to have my own business, and then things go sky high. As you mentioned before, we also have the Easter holidays to contend with. We have to think about when people are going on holiday, when are the lulls. And again, in September, things are picking up, September and October being a massive time for us.
And would you say, Petra, that you see a similar trend in the US as well?
That was a bit surprising because you can't infer the same will happen in the US. So we are trying to build up a trend of what's going on there. But because we've only been there since 2016, it's actually really hard to get the full picture yet, because we've only got a year and a half of data, and ideally I really need 2 to 3 years to figure out what's going on in that country.
And where would you say that search fits into your seasonal campaigns? Balj, you had a very interesting comment about that when we spoke about it.
I can't remember what that comment was. So with search and seasonal, it's easy to think, oh, it's a seasonal event, search has to be there straight away. But remember, search is about harvesting that interest. It's not the source. You can't create the interest with search as well. So that's all about linking up with all the other channels. If there's a seasonal event that, say, your client hasn't normally done a campaign for, what are the other channels doing? Are they going to create a buzz around this? There's no point running a search campaign if you're already questioning, is that awareness there in the first place? Just remembering what the role of search is in that. So it's really important you link up with your other channels. Are they going to help you along this journey? And that will also turn into help you planning your phasing of spend. There's no point of turning search on when social then first starts their campaign as well, because they're creating that buzz and interest around you. Maybe go live 2 weeks or even a month later as well.
And how do you use data in your planning for seasonal campaigns?
I'll start with the microphone. So data is basically Bible when it comes to search. So definitely the first port of call is historical data. Have you run anything similar before? Maybe not the exact same campaign, but similar products, for example. And then Google, so the keyword planner, which we all take with a pinch of salt. Google Trends as well. It's a really interesting way to kind of predict when things are going to happen. And of course, Adthena, the beauty of Adthena is it tells you what's happening in the search market when you are not there as well. And it's really important to have the all-rounded market view of what is going on, because you might see, for example, a competitor, turns out they've been playing in that space for years and you're late to the game. Or did you find a season event that no one else is playing in as well? So it's all about using historical data, using the tools that you have in hand, and also competitor insights as well.
First of all, you start with your own data, first-party data, and it's really important to watch that data all the way through the funnel. It's great having the demand at one end, but if that demand is actually not converting into the leads and then into the sales you want, it's wasted money. So make sure you've got your data in a good place. Make sure you're tracking all the events you want to track. But then I always say, be really aware of your own data, because looking back to the previous year or even the year before, can you remember if you influenced your own data by running campaigns, by doing things, what happened in the space a year ago? So that's when it's important to then overlay it with other data sources. As many data sources as you can get your hands on. You mentioned Google Trend. There's actually something called Google Industry Trends you can ask your Google representative for, which is specific to your area. So it's a good idea to try and figure out what's been going on in your industry that is not necessarily influenced by the actions you took a year ago.
Makes sense. And what does success look like in a seasonal campaign for you?
I think before we go about just decide whether or not we have a successful campaign, the first thing to do is define what is that picture of success. And that can change from campaign to campaign to event. So I think the first port of call is work with your client, define that picture of success. We're all experts here, we're all specialists in our field, and sometimes we need to take the client on that journey with us. They might say, I want to run a campaign for this season event, never done it before. I want to drive awareness and I want a good return. So you're thinking, hang on, from a search campaign, you want to drive loads of traffic, have a really high impression share, but also good ROAS. It's kind of not how search campaigns, the best way is working with them. So it's taking their goal and translating it into search KPIs. First of all, define your picture of success, get the client on board, and then go for it. If you can hit those goals, that for me is a successful campaign.
So just another point on top of that is just like being very transparent with your client as well. So for example, if you have like gone into trouble with anything, just be completely transparent with them. It's always good to just have that good relationship with your client and just make sure that you're both on board. There's very clear KPIs and just making sure that you're all just on the same page.
Obviously, we run different types of campaigns. We will run search acquisition campaigns versus also brand awareness campaigns. The KPIs will be completely different on those acquisition campaigns versus our brand awareness campaigns. So as you said earlier, we must make sure we get it straight, what these KPIs are, and then afterwards we do a debrief as well if we've met it. And then going forwards, especially with the brand campaigns, what were your learnings? Then you can pull it forward into your next seasonal campaign too.
And did you mention at some point that for you, for brand campaigns, you also kind of bolster them during trough periods as opposed to during peak periods?
We've experimented with that over the last year, where we ran the first brand campaign, which was at the end of Q3, purely because our seasonality, we finish our massive big business at the end of October. So why not try a brand campaign to prolong that season? And then again, we ran it at the end of March, going into April, just to see what it does, if we can boost our business through that, and we've had great success with that. However, now we're running a different brand campaign, which is the middle of September until the end of October, to get some insight in when is actually best time to run a brand campaign.
And with you working directly, obviously, client side, do you find that sometimes the business may focus on different KPIs than you as a PPC practitioner would?
Yes, definitely. For the brand campaign, as I mentioned, we are actually looking at the long term. When we figured out our KPIs for the last brand campaign, and then we took a long-term view of the whole of the sales, then taking into account a 6 months period, not just a short-term goal. And that's exactly what we're doing with this one as well. And the business is completely on board with that, to take a long-term view on the brand activities we're doing. Whereas when it comes to search, we're measuring actually really short-term success.
So can you give me an example of a time when you tried out a seasonal campaign and it didn't quite work out the way you expected it to?
Yeah, I'm laughing because it's... so I've had quite an extensive background in online pharmacies. And it's great for online because it's very personal and private. It actually does really well. So one of kind of the biggest sellers online actually is Viagra. And we thought, oh, okay, Valentine's Day, is there something around this? So we did kind of a little bit of deep dive into the last few years of data, and we thought there was something there. So we kind of looked at where, and I think Valentine's was in this year, it was the middle of the week. So we thought people were celebrating the weekend before, so let's try and push it really, really hard and see what happens. It did not work. People aren't looking Viagra more so than usual when it comes to Valentine's Day. So we just forgot that idea. Literally.
Can I just chip in on that one? Because we actually do our daily weighting. Every single day has a different weighting. And business insurance, we were, like you said, middle of the week. So we weighted it as a completely normal day. But guess what? They might not have bought Viagra, but nobody was buying business insurance on that day either. So we're now going to downweight Valentine's Day next year by 30%.
So if there was one thing you would like everybody to take away after our chat, what would be your top tip for seasonal campaigns?
So this is mainly around Black Friday, but it is that, just bear in mind that your competitors, your really big competitors with big budgets could possibly win out, and that's just simply because if they're going hard on TV, radio, search, if you've got a smaller budget, you just may not be able to get in within that space. However, there is a however, don't forget about organic channels, don't forget about social media, because everything could just flip. If you have a really good comment or a really bad comment, it could completely change the way that you've done your campaign, and just learn to be reactive with that.
I say my top tip, again, alludes to what Annie was just talking about earlier. It's, we don't have a crystal ball. We can do everything we can in the world to prepare for it. So being agile, and don't be scared to be agile as well. Things happen on the day which you just don't expect. Your competitor could run out of a product that you're actually selling really well of, or you could be completely outpriced, or, for example, have a trademark issue that you weren't expecting. And so, go to the UK head office, get on the call with them, ask them to fill out the trademark form. Just don't be scared to be agile. Things happen. All that time you use to prepare means on the day you're not doing any new builds or things like that. So, be calm. Don't worry if it happens. Showing the client that you're being agile and reacting to changes in market just means that, you're doing a good thing for them and they'll be impressed with it. So don't be afraid to do it.
My top tip would be prepared. You talked about the crystal ball. We actually call our lead prediction model the crystal ball.
I didn't know that before, by the way.
I would really dig into the data, because even though I'm saying January through to March and then September, October are really the busy seasons, but you can dig into it further and analyse what type of customer is more likely to respond to you in January, February, and so on. So work out the profile. Again, that's something we learned when we went to the US. The profile of our customer is slightly different, and that's the kind of data you need to look at to get your search campaigns up to scratch, to really make sure you've got everything you know about these customers, and that's the kind of preparedness I would suggest.
Thank you. Are there any questions for our panel? Lyndon?
Petra. So you talked about having specific brand campaigns versus acquisition campaigns.
Yes.
Just wondering whether you include your brand spend within your CPAs and ROI calculations, and if so, how do you sort of define a period over which you would measure your success?
It's a separate budget. We have a completely separate budget for the brand campaigns, and the CPA are completely different too. We run, the measure of success is obviously you do a brand uplift survey in addition to having your CPAs, and we measure everything through from the minute somebody lands on our website. We measure it through using events, and then we look at we've got a really sophisticated analysis team. We've got lots of people working on it to then do the analysis. And we don't do it straight away. We report literally real time on this campaign. However, we always have a caveat that we need to then at least wait 6 months before we know the full impact of how many customers converted on the back of this campaign. It's a totally different period of measurement.
Any more questions? Ash.
How are you setting expectations with your stakeholders when there's so much volatility and seasonality?
So could you repeat that? It's hard to hear you.
So how do you set expectations with your boss, client, stakeholder when there is so much volatility and seasonality?
Wow, quite forceful in how we say it. It's important to bring them on that journey with you. If they come to you with something and you think, I need to reset these expectations, it's kind of outlining a really logical argument and bring them on that journey with you and making them understand why you might want to reset that or set it in a different way, and what role search needs to play within that. Because I think it's easy to fall in the bucket of, oh, the client wants this, I'm just going to get them and do it, without first taking a step back and thinking, actually, is it the right thing for them as a brand? Is it the right thing for them as a product? Are we even the right channel? As much as we want to, for example, push spend into search, it might not be the right thing to do. So it's laying out that kind of argument for them, bring them on that journey with it, so it's not a shock email that you're sending over. And then just ask them, what are your worries? What are your concerns? But then also going back to targets as well, because at the end of the day, everyone's got a bottom line to work towards, and so do our client contacts. So it's reassurance at the same time that what we're doing is for their best interest as a business as well.
Any other questions? Thank you, ladies.